What's up, everybody? Cole Sands Fishing here. It is the middle of February 2022, and we're going to dive into this week's episode. So this week's report is brought to you by Tumlin Real Estate Professionals and Consulting. And it's a great company, great people. If y'all are looking for a home or a piece of property, around Lake Chickamauga, around Watts Bar Lake, somewhere down here in the Tennessee Valley, they're great people to reach out to. Be sure to look them up on Facebook. Like I said, Tumlin Real Estate Professionals and Consulting. But let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode. I had a really awesome week guiding. I mean, we had some awesome days of fishing. Kind of got tougher towards the end of the week, but we adapted and we put some fish in the boat and had solid stringers of fish every single day. So that's and happy clients, and that's really all that matters. So for starters, I want to run over the bait set work this week. We caught them on a lot of different stuff. Had to bounce around a lot. It seemed like every day we had to kind of figure out something new, to be successful. But that's just part of fishing, and especially fishing Lake Chickamauga. It seems like it changes a lot. It's one of them lakes you really have to adapt, and if you're going to be successful. So for starters, got out Tuesday, caught a couple that morning, fishing some transition stuff, throwing it that Diamond Baits Alabama rig, True Bass swim baits. I know y'all have heard me talk about these a lot in the past couple weeks. Same thing, throwing it on 20-pound fluorocarbon, Yozuri T7 is the type of fluorocarbon I throw. Throwing it on a 7.6 heavy Witch Doctor Tackle Shaman Series rod. They caught a couple on it to start the morning, and then we made a pretty quick change. I saw some shad activity up shallow. I said, guys, we need to go up and fish some of these flats, and I'm glad we did, because that was definitely the deal that was going on that day. So we really caught them on several different colors, and same thing I've talked about every week is throwing this Yozuri Rattling vibe, and I kid you not, we caught them on I think 7 or 8 different colors this week, and it seemed like timing was a deal. I let watercolor dictate what color I threw some, and then definitely kind of location where I was at, and just whatever felt right. Usually if it was me and a couple clients, I'd have us all throwing a different color, just to really try to see what's working best. So that first day, Tuesday, the main players in the morning, it was that mat crawl. That mat crawl has really seemed to be good in the first couple hours of daylight lately. Something about red in the morning has really seemed to work. And then I was throwing that Ghost Pearl Shad. These are both the 5/8 ounce size. Throwing it on 16-pound Yozuri T7 fluorocarbon. And that was kind of the deal that morning. And then we made a kind of a transition. We threw some other colors too. I had one of my clients that day throwing the smaller Rattling Vibe. That's the 3/8 ounce size. And he kind of experimented with the Sexy Shad color and the Royal Purple. And caught fish on both. The Royal Purple seemed to fish a little bit better that day. And then tied on a couple chrome colors. That's the chrome and black, but tried actually a chrome and blue that day. And my client caught our biggest fish that day on a chrome and blue. Just kind of kept changing colors, trying to give the fish something new. We'd work back through a couple areas and just switch colors, and it seemed to get a couple more bites every time we'd go through. Citrus still seemed to be a really good player. I've talked about it in weeks past. But what I've noticed, I'm doing really good with them solid colors really all day, but when that sun gets out and there's a little bit of wind, I've been switching to either a chrome and black or a chrome and blue, and that's something that's been good up in the afternoon. And it's definitely counted for some more fish than I think we'd have normally caught. Another color that I've started catching a lot of fish on this week is that translucent bluegill color, and I'll have to look up the name of this one. But there's a lot of bluegill in the grass right now, the grass that's left, and a lot of these flats, you'll see little bluegill popping, and that's the color that I caught several fish on this week as well. And same thing, just yo-yoing it. I've talked about it in weeks past, ripping it up. To do that, it's really important to have a good setup. I firmly believe you have to have a good rod and reel setup to do it, and to do it efficiently. And that's why I feel like I can go behind a lot of boats and catch fish. But throwing that on my 7.2 Witch Doctor Tackle, medium heavy, it's a half glass. It's a 50% glass, 50% graphite rod. And I've talked about this in weeks past. The rod is super strong with the graphite in it, and then the glass gives it a really good tip to fight the fish. But what this allows you to do is really get a good rip, I'm fishing it around a little bit of grass. I'm fishing it, around stumps and stuff. But especially when you're in that vegetation, you need something that you can really rip it loose, and that rod is the perfect setup. The glass in it helps you fight the fish. We lost very, very, very few fish this week, and I contributed, a lot to my equipment. It's good hooks on these Yo-Zuri Rattling Vibes. I use the stock hooks because they're super sharp and they work really good. I'm not one to change until they get dull. But that rod has been crucial. I'll leave the link in the bio. I've had a lot of people ask where to get it. Check out their website. It's wishdoctortackle.com. He makes awesome rods, and I can't say enough good things about him. But so that was kind of the deal that day. We ended up with about 17 or 18 pounds. Had a pretty good bag of fish. Caught close to 20 fish. It was a good day. Wednesday, it was right before the front was coming in. I had a granddad, a son, and a grandson. I usually just do 2 clients in my boat, but I made an exception because I had the grandson. And they book a lot of trips with me. They're really fun to be around. And anyways, they had one of the most unforgettable fishing trips that I've had in a while. Our best 5 that day went almost 27 pounds. It seemed like everybody had a good fish that day. The biggest one that day, that was a day where the Rattling Vibe really was the main deal. Almost every one of those fish came off of Rattling Vibe. Did catch a couple, starting to catch a couple on the big swim baits. We did catch 1 or 2 maybe on that Tuesday on the big 8-inch swim bait. Wednesday I think we caught 2 pretty good ones on a swim bait, but everything else was on the Yo-Zuri Rattling Vibe. Ironically enough, one of my clients caught 1/8. It was like an 8.17, and he caught it on the little bitty 3/8 ounce Yo-Zuri Rattling Vibe, the little bitty hooks, and it was an awesome fight, and it was a pretty epic fish catch. But that day, same colors I've already talked about. One thing I did have somebody comment about last week was, do I prefer a one knocker or a rattle? So you got the rattle or the one knocker, which is a lot more subtle, and it's definitely a different sound. And for me, I've done a lot better personally, probably on the rattle, just the old school rattling baits. Now, with that being said, I haven't thrown a one knocker near as much. My confidence is in just the traditional BB rattle rattling vibe. But with that being said, I did play around with it this week. That day we had that big bag of fish. We did catch a couple nice fish on that silver and black one knocker. Also, I was throwing the citrus around, just the traditional rattle, and I went down a pass and I caught a couple fish, and I tied this one on to see if it made any difference, and I caught a couple more that I might not have caught without it. So for me, I usually go with the rattle one most of the time. Now, when fish get super pressured, I think there is a time and a place for a one knocker. And it's something I'm going to keep experimenting around with, try to, break it down to a science. But one thing about fishing is you never really truly figure it out. But the bottom line is they both work really good. I think you will catch some fish on a one knocker that might not bite a rattle, and vice versa. So it's definitely good to have both in your boat. You get in a good area, and you want to rotate through a couple baits. It's definitely, really, really good to have a couple different varieties. And, one thing I might even do is make a couple of these silent, just so I can give them something else to look at. But yeah, so those are the main colors. Like I said, that day we caught a couple on a swim bait. I did catch a decent one on the hardcore glide. They were just biting really good with that front moving through. We caught almost, I think, 26 or 27 fish that day. Lost a couple, but pretty much landed all the good ones, and it was a really epic day of fishing. Thursday rolled around. We had a complete weather change to some clouds, some rain moved in. I thought it would have been actually a lot better than it was. It was a decent day. We still boated 15 fish. And kind of caught them on a little bit of everything. We caught a couple that morning, yo-yo and the rattling vibes around. But they were hitting it really funny that day. You could just tell the ones we were catching didn't have it near as good. The ones we were catching earlier in the week, it was in the back of their throats. And then, Thursday rolled around, and a lot of them you'd yo-yoed up, they just tick it, you wouldn't hook them, or the ones you would catch would just kind of have it. Still caught a couple nice ones on it, a couple 4-pounders, or a 4-pounder and a couple threes. And then my client, he wanted to throw some big swim baits around. I got him. He got a nice one, almost a 6-pounder on the big mag draft, which was really cool. It smoked it. And then it was kind of slow, it kind of slowed down, and I have been fishing a lot of flats, a lot of grass flats, and like 2 to 6 foot of water, a couple of ditches and different stuff with that rattling vibe. And it really seemed to slow down. So we decided to make a little change, kind of got on a little deeper grass line and about 6 foot of water, some rock mixed in. Caught a couple on the, just the old chatterbait, and then made kind of a switch to a little square bill. This is the Hardcore Crank SR65F, and caught a couple on it to end the day. Really got our numbers up. Caught a couple more in the rattling vibe to end the day. As far as that goes, I throw it on the same rod for the same reasons as I throw the rattling vibe. That Sermon 50G series, Witch Doctor tackle rod. It's the same thing. I love having that glass that's limber, and then the backbone to really rip it out of the grass and stuff. So that's also an awesome square bill rod. It's an awesome chatterbait rod. That's my go-to for pretty much any moving bait. But so that happened, and then we had a decent day. Had another probably 17, 18-pound bag. Just a solid bag of fish. And then Friday rolled around, and we had a ton of rain Thursday night. And Friday we get out there, man, and it's just not happening. We are hitting all of our normal rattling vibe holes, hitting some other stuff, and a lot of it was washed out. A lot of it was just chocolate milk, so I kind of had to run some new stuff. And then we made the decision about halfway through the day, like, hey, let's just change it up. Let's just do something different. I'm gonna go back on some of my history, some of the stuff I used to do, and let's see if we can put together, a decent limit of fish and put some fish in the boat. Because, man, we weren't catching hardly anything. The high that day was like 36, and it slowed on us, and it was freezing. The wind was blowing, and we made a change, and we immediately started putting some fish in the boat. Like I said, we caught a couple on that square bill the day before. So we pulled up, thrown it around a little bit, thrown it in the citrus color. That one's got chewed a little bit this week. Might have bounced off a rock or two as well. And then that crawfish color. And this bait's got a really cool wobble to it. It's hard to explain, but it's just kind of a different wobble. It's got this weight transfer system, so you can cast it super far. And we immediately started putting a couple fish in the boat. And, that just changed the momentum of the day. We were freezing, it was cold, it was windy, but we started putting fish in the boat, and, that just changes your whole day around. And pretty much every fish that day came either off the square bill, or this is another one I like, which is it's basically the same bait, but it's just in, a little bit deeper diver. That's the Hardcore Crank MR60F. It is just a hair smaller, but same thing. Throwing that in the citrus color, throwing it in the crawfish color. And that's kind of my two go-tos when the water's a little bit stained. Like I said, it was muddy in a lot of places, so we kind of just bounced back and forth between them two colors. And didn't put a ton of fish in the boat, but we still put about a 15-pound limit in the boat. And my client was happy, and we ended the week of fishing on a good note. And that's always good. So, but yeah, overall a great week. As you can tell, we caught fish on a little bit of everything, chatterbaits, rattling vibes, these hardcore crankbaits, and these are super high quality crankbaits too. These are Japanese. They come with good hooks, a really good paint job, and that was definitely the key to our success, was just staying versatile, trusting your gut, trusting what makes sense. As far as depth goes, still a lot of the fish I'm catching on that rattling vibe are 6 foot and less. We caught some, like a foot of water. The 8-pounder my client caught was only in probably 2 foot of water, which, that was pretty crazy. But catching a couple on a swim, that big swim bait, catching some of them out deeper and, that mid-range, maybe 10 foot. But really, everything, even when we're throwing a crankbait, we're throwing it really close to the bank. We might be fishing steep banks. What we were really looking for is where bluffs kind of transition to a flatter area. That seemed to be the key. It didn't seem like we got a whole lot of bites off the real steep stuff, but where it would kind of transition to more of that 45, that's where we'd get bit. And just, kind of changing crankbaits depending on the depth. If it was deeper, putting on that one. If it was a little bit shallower, putting on the square bill. And you want to be sure to get in them rocks, you know, dig them rocks, try to make it reflect off them rocks. And that's what gets you those bites. You know, it's that trigger reaction. Them fish aren't really wanting to eat on a cold front day. You got to make them eat. And so, yeah, I mean, that was our week. Going forward into this week, I know there's a couple college tournaments and high school tournaments coming up, but we're supposed to get a lot of rain. It's supposed to warm up, which means a lot of them rattle trap fish are going to really start munching again. You know, if I was going out next week, which I will be guiding some, but if I was fishing a tournament next week, I would have 3 rattle traps tied on. I'd have, you know, citrus, royal purple, and that matte crawl. Those would be my 3 colors for the muddy water. And then I would definitely keep that square bill on us, keep the crankbait deal on us, because them fish are going to get really tight to cover. The muddier it gets, the tighter fish will get to cover. So I'd be sure to keep some crankbaits on. You know, I would have this one tied on personally because it's a fish catcher, and that red's always really good in muddy water. And then besides that, you know, I would probably have also a big spinnerbait tied on. One thing when it gets super muddy, which I think it might, a big thumping spinnerbait is a good way to catch a big one. You know, something with a big Colorado blade, white and chartreuse. You know, it's usually my go-to. Half ounce or even 3/4 ounce. You know, fish tight to cover, fish laydowns, rock. And then also maybe if the water comes up, don't be afraid to push way back in them pockets. Maybe there's some fresh water flowing in. And, you know, that's what I'll look for next week. It should be a fun week. It's an awesome time of year to be on Chickamauga, so y'all be sure to get out there. But thanks for the support, guys, and I'll catch y'all next week. Bye.